While research has provided the paper, Cognitive Control as a Multivariate Optimization Problem, presents an in-depth exploration of how cognitive control, the ability to regulate thought and behavior in line with goals, is best understood as a problem of optimization involving multiple variables. The authors frame cognitive control as similar to motor control in that it requires selecting optimal actions from a set of potential actions, where various configurations of control can all achieve the same outcome, creating a redundancy that makes it challenging to select the most efficient or optimal strategy. This problem, known as an inverse problem, has been extensively studied in motor control and now provides a framework to better understand cognitive control. Core concept cognitive control has been traditionally studied in terms of decision-making, where people adjust their attention, focus, and inhibition in response to environmental demands. While research has provided insights into how cognitive control adjusts to errors or conflicts, e.g., making fewer mistakes after an error or resolving competing responses, less is understood about how the brain handles the sheer multiplicity of control strategies that could be used in any situation. The central argument of the paper is that this multiplicity is analogous to inverse problems in motor control, where the brain must choose from a large number of potential motor actions, e.g., different limb movements to reach the same object. In both motor and cognitive control, the solution to this problem is understood in terms of optimization, where the brain evaluates the costs and benefits of each potential control strategy and selects the one that maximizes performance while minimizing effort. Cognitive control as a multivariate problem. Cognitive control does not rely on a single dimension of adjustment but is multivariate, meaning it involves adjusting several control parameters simultaneously. For example, post-error adjustments. After making an error in tasks like the stroop or flanker, people tend to slow down their responses and improve accuracy, which reflects an increase in decision threshold, how much evidence one needs before acting. Simultaneously, the brain may enhance the processing of goal-relevant information, e.g., focusing more on the target, and suppress distracting or irrelevant information, e.g., ignoring flanking stimuli. These adjustments are governed by different control signals and occur concurrently. These multiple adjustments represent a complex coordination of various control mechanisms, creating a multiplicity challenge similar to motor control's problem of having too many degrees of freedom in limb movement. Motor control analogies and inverse problems. The paper draws a direct analogy between cognitive control and motor control, particularly in terms of inverse problems. Motor control faces the problem of selecting a single action from a vast number of potential movements, e.g., different ways to move a hand to reach an object. In cognitive control, the brain similarly faces the problem of choosing among multiple control configurations, e.g., focusing on the task, suppressing distractions, or adjusting the decision threshold to optimize task performance. Both motor and cognitive control must solve these inverse problems by applying constraints to reduce the number of possible solutions. In motor control, these constraints are often energy costs or effort costs, e.g., preferring smoother, less effortful movements. In cognitive control, mental effort serves as a similar constraint, preventing the brain from choosing overly complex or energy-intensive control strategies. Regularization and cognitive effort. One of the central solutions proposed for solving the inverse problem in both motor and cognitive control is regularization. Regularization is a technique used in optimization to favor simpler or less costly solutions by adding a cost to more complex or effortful actions. In motor control, effort costs help regularize movement planning by penalizing solutions that require more force or energy, leading to smoother, more efficient actions. In cognitive control, mental effort functions as a regularizing cost. The brain tends to avoid overly effortful strategies unless they offer substantial benefits. For instance, after an error or when faced with a difficult task, the brain might adjust control settings, e.g., increasing focus or attention, but only to the extent that the benefits, e.g., improved performance outweigh the costs, e.g., mental fatigue. The authors propose that cognitive effort helps the brain select the best control configuration by penalizing strategies that require excessive mental resources. This regularization makes the optimization of control more stable and tractable, guiding the brain to favor solutions that are not only effective but also energy efficient. Bayesian inference and cognitive control. The paper also draws on Bayesian inference to explain how the brain solves the inverse problem in cognitive control. Bayesian inference is a statistical method that updates prior beliefs based on new evidence. In the context of cognitive control, the brain uses prior knowledge, e.g., past experiences with similar tasks, to guide control decisions and updates these predictions as new information, e.g., errors, conflicts, becomes available. Bayesian inference allows the brain to weigh the costs and benefits of different control strategies based on past performance and current task demands. For example, if a task has previously required a high degree of control, e.g., focusing on multiple targets, the brain will expect similar demands in the future and will allocate control accordingly. However, if the task turns out to be easier than expected, the brain may reduce control, saving mental effort. Effort and the flexibility of cognitive control. A key insight from the paper is that effort serves to regulate the flexibility of cognitive control. The brain must balance between being overly rigid, exerting too much control, and overly lax, exerting too little. Effort costs help the brain avoid overly complex control configurations, ensuring that control is applied only when necessary and to the extent that it is needed. For example, when learning a difficult task, people may initially exert a high level of control, but over time, as the task becomes more familiar, the brain can reduce effort and rely on more automatic responses. This dynamic adjustment of control is central to cognitive efficiency and reflects the brain's ability to optimize over multiple dimensions of control. Bayesian regularization of control. The authors suggest that the brain uses Bayesian regularization to solve the inverse problem of control configuration. This means that the brain applies prior knowledge about how much control is typically required for certain tasks and penalizes deviations from these priors unless new evidence justifies a change. For instance, if a task is known to require high levels of attention, the brain will initially allocate more control resources to the task. However, if the task turns out to be less demanding, the brain will adjust by reducing control, conserving mental effort. Summary: cognitive control is a multivariate optimization problem, where the brain must allocate different types of control, e.g., focus, inhibition, decision threshold, to optimize task performance. This optimization problem is akin to inverse problems in motor control, where the brain must choose from multiple possible actions to achieve a goal. Effort costs serve as a regularizing force, preventing the brain from choosing overly complex or energy-intensive control strategies. Bayesian inference helps the brain integrate prior knowledge with new evidence to optimize control allocation. The brain's ability to dynamically adjust control based on task demands and effort costs is central to efficient cognitive functioning. In essence, cognitive control involves the brain balancing multiple control signals to achieve task goals while minimizing mental effort. And this process is guided by optimization principles similar to those found in motor control. The paper, introducing a Bayesian model of selective attention based on active inference, develops a computational framework that models selective attention in the context of active inference. Active inference is a principle from neuroscience and machine learning where the brain acts to minimize surprise, or free energy, by gathering information that reduces uncertainty about the world. The model is aimed at explaining how the brain selectively attends to task-relevant information while ignoring irrelevant stimuli, especially in complex environments where not all information is useful. Key concepts: selective attention. This is a cognitive process where the brain focuses on certain pieces of information that are important for the task at hand, while ignoring irrelevant data. The paper explores selective attention through visual search tasks, focusing on how the brain actively selects task-relevant stimuli while avoiding distractions. Active inference. Active inference is a framework that suggests the brain constantly tries to minimize prediction error by updating its beliefs about the world. This process involves both perception, inferring the causes of sensory data, and action, choosing behaviors that minimize uncertainty or free energy. Epistemic foraging. This concept refers to the brain's tendency to gather information that resolves uncertainty. The model suggests that in visual tasks, we are driven to attend to stimuli that offer the highest potential for information gain, i.e., reducing uncertainty. However, the brain only seeks information relevant to the current context or task. Bayesian attention model. The Bayesian approach involves updating prior beliefs based on new evidence. In this model, attention works by modulating sensory precision, i.e., how much confidence is placed in different sensory inputs. For example, when searching for a red pen, the brain increases the precision, or relevance, of red and pen-like features in the visual field. Attention becomes a proactive process, where the brain enhances the precision of task-relevant features, such as red or pen, before the sensory data is even processed. This mechanism ensures that attention is directed to information that is most likely to resolve uncertainty about the task. Context-dependent exploration. Context plays a crucial role in determining what information is task-relevant. The model shows how, in different contexts, the brain modulates the precision of sensory inputs. For instance, if a task requires identifying colors, the brain increases the precision of color-related information and decreases the relevance of other features like shape. The authors simulate exploratory behaviors in visual search tasks where attention is directed based on context, e.g., focusing on color when color categorization is required and ignoring shapes. This helps the brain optimize its information-seeking behavior in a task-dependent way. Role of precision. The precision of sensory information is crucial in this model. The brain adjusts the precision of different sensory inputs depending on the task's context. For example, if the task is to categorize a scene based on color, the precision of color-related sensory signals is increased, while shape information is downplayed. The model uses simulations to show how altering sensory precision influences attention and behavior in visual search tasks. Applications to pathologies. The model is also applied to explain atypical attentional behaviors in conditions such as autism and anxiety. In autism, there may be a failure to modulate sensory precision appropriately, leading to atypical exploration behaviors. This failure results in attention being directed toward irrelevant stimuli, making it harder for individuals to focus on task-relevant information. In anxiety, the model suggests that individuals may have heightened precision for certain types of sensory information, such as facial expressions of fear. This heightened precision could explain why anxious individuals are quicker to detect fear-related stimuli. Bayesian surprise. A key idea in the model is Bayesian surprise, which refers to the difference between prior and updated beliefs about the world. The brain is attracted to stimuli that cause a significant shift in beliefs, as these are seen as highly informative. The model formalizes how Bayesian surprise can guide attention toward the most informative aspects of a visual scene, while ignoring irrelevant details based on context. Summary. The paper provides a comprehensive Bayesian model of selective attention that integrates concepts from active inference and epistemic foraging. It emphasizes how the brain dynamically modulates sensory precision to focus on task-relevant information, particularly in complex environments. By adjusting the expected precision of sensory inputs based on context, the brain can efficiently resolve uncertainty while ignoring irrelevant data. The model has practical applications in understanding neurocognitive disorders like autism and anxiety, where attentional processes may be disrupted. Both papers, Cognitive Control as a Multivariate Optimization Problem, and Introducing a Bayesian Model of Selective Attention Based on Active Inference, present complementary views on how cognitive control operates through mechanisms of optimization and selective attention. Together, they provide a more holistic understanding of how cognitive control works by highlighting two core processes: multivariate optimization of control signals and selective allocation of attention to task-relevant information. Cognitive control as multivariate optimization. The first paper views cognitive control as an optimization problem involving the coordination of multiple control signals, e.g., inhibiting distractions, focusing attention, adjusting decision thresholds, to achieve task goals. Cognitive control is likened to motor control in that it involves selecting the best combination of actions from many possible configurations, which is referred to as an inverse problem. The brain must balance the benefits of control, e.g., task success, with its costs, e.g., mental effort. Selecting strategies that optimize performance while minimizing unnecessary cognitive effort. This multivariate nature of cognitive control means that multiple control processes are often adjusted simultaneously, e.g., increasing focus while suppressing distractions. The challenge is finding the right balance between these processes to avoid overexertion or inefficiency. Effort costs play a crucial role in limiting overly complex control strategies, ensuring that the brain's cognitive resources are not wasted on unimportant tasks. The paper proposes that Bayesian inference helps guide these control decisions by using past experience, priors, and current evidence to dynamically adjust control settings based on task demands. Bayesian selective attention and active inference. The second paper introduces a Bayesian model of selective attention based on the principle of active inference. Selective attention is described as the brain's ability to actively filter out irrelevant stimuli and focus on task-relevant information to reduce uncertainty about the world. This process is framed as epistemic foraging, where the brain seeks information that is most useful for the task at hand, much like how animals forage for food. The model shows that attention is proactively guided by beliefs about what features, e.g., color, shape, will be most informative in a given context, allowing the brain to efficiently allocate cognitive resources. In this framework, attention is modulated by the precision, or reliability, of sensory information. The brain dynamically adjusts the precision of different sensory inputs based on task goals, emphasizing information that is expected to resolve uncertainty. For example, if a task involves identifying the color of an object, the brain enhances the precision of color information while suppressing irrelevant features like shape. This process of contextual modulation ensures that cognitive control is directed toward the most relevant aspects of the environment. Integration of cognitive control and selective attention when combined. The two papers suggest that cognitive control and selective attention work together as part of a larger optimization system in the brain. The brain's task is to continuously balance multiple control processes, e.g., attention, inhibition, decision thresholds, while focusing on the most relevant information to optimize behavior in a given context. Key insights from both papers include: effort as a limiting factor. Cognitive control is constrained by the effort cost of maintaining control over various processes. The brain avoids strategies that require excessive effort, using Bayesian inference to find the most efficient configuration of control signals that balances effort and performance. Dynamic adjustment based on context. The brain dynamically adjusts both control signals and attentional focus depending on the task at hand. The Bayesian model of selective attention shows how sensory precision is modulated based on task relevance, ensuring that attention is directed toward features that will provide the most information. This aligns with the optimization framework, where the brain chooses control strategies that offer the best trade-off between task success and mental effort. Bayesian inference as a unifying mechanism. Both cognitive control and selective attention rely on Bayesian inference as a mechanism for integrating prior knowledge with new information to optimize behavior. In the case of cognitive control, Bayesian inference helps select the most efficient control configuration based on past experience and current demands. For selective attention, it helps the brain prioritize the most informative stimuli, ensuring that attention is directed toward reducing uncertainty. Inverse problem in control and attention. Both papers highlight the concept of the inverse problem, where the brain must choose among multiple potential solutions, control strategies or attentional focuses, to achieve the same goal. In cognitive control, this involves selecting the right combination of control signals. In selective attention, it involves determining which sensory inputs will be most useful for reducing uncertainty in a given context. Practical implications. Adaptive control. Cognitive control is not rigid but adaptively optimized based on the demands of the task and the environment. This adaptability allows the brain to conserve resources while still achieving goals efficiently. Pathological insights. Both models provide insights into conditions like autism and anxiety. In autism, difficulties may arise from an inability to appropriately modulate attention, leading to a failure to filter out irrelevant information. In anxiety, heightened sensory precision for threatening stimuli, e.g., fearful faces, could explain the hyperattention to anxiogenic stimuli. Task-driven modulation. The brain's ability to focus on relevant information while minimizing effort is crucial for efficient cognitive functioning. Understanding how this modulation works can inform interventions for disorders of attention and control, as well as the development of adaptive AI systems that mimic human cognitive strategies. Conclusion. Cognitive control and selective attention are intricately linked processes that the brain uses to optimize behavior in complex environments. Cognitive control operates as a multivariate optimization problem, where the brain balances effort and performance by adjusting various control signals. Selective attention, guided by Bayesian inference, ensures that attention is focused on the most relevant information for reducing uncertainty. Together, these processes allow the brain to efficiently navigate the world, dynamically adjusting its strategies based on context and task demands. The concept of classifier-free guidance in machine learning, particularly in generative models like diffusion models, shares similarities with the cognitive processes described in the two papers on cognitive control and selective attention. Classifier-free guidance involves modulating generative outputs based on different conditions without the need for an explicit classifier, which in many ways mirrors how the brain dynamically adjusts cognitive control and attention based on context and task demands. Here's a reasoned breakdown of how these ideas are connected. 1. Modulation of control signals, cognitive control, and classifier-free guidance in the paper on cognitive control as a multivariate optimization problem. Cognitive control is framed as a process that adjusts multiple control signals to balance between effort and task performance. This is similar to how classifier-free guidance modulates the outputs of a generative model during sampling. Cognitive control. The brain selects which cognitive processes to emphasize, e.g., inhibition, attention, decision thresholds, depending on task demands and effort costs. This optimization is performed to ensure that the best outcomes are achieved with minimal cognitive strain. Classifier-free guidance. In diffusion models, the generative process is guided by modifying the sampling trajectory to generate images, or text, that align with the desired prompt. Instead of using an explicit classifier to enforce the guidance, the model itself is conditioned to modulate outputs based on task-relevant features, the guidance strength. In both cases, the system seeks to optimize outcomes by adjusting internal parameters, cognitive control signals or latent representations in the generative model, to meet specific goals, behavioral performance or generating a coherent image. Both rely on implicit constraints, cognitive effort in the brain and guidance scale in the generative model, to prevent overexertion of resources while still achieving the desired outcome. 2. Selective attention and precision modulation. The second paper, on selective attention based on Bayesian active inference, highlights how the brain modulates sensory precision to focus on task-relevant stimuli. This is highly analogous to the concept of guidance scale in classifier-free generative models, where the system selectively enhances or suppresses certain features of the generated output based on the prompt. Selective attention. In the brain, the precision of sensory input is increased for task-relevant features and decreased for irrelevant ones. For example, when searching for a red pen, the brain boosts the relevance, precision, of redness and pen-like shapes, while downplaying irrelevant features like background objects. Classifier-free guidance. In generative models, guidance works by effectively increasing the precision of the model's outputs to match the conditioning prompt. The model is trained to generate outputs that match both unconditional noise and the prompt, but during generation, a higher guidance scale increases the relevance of prompt-specific features, leading to outputs that align more with the user's intent, similar to how the brain modulates attention. In both cognitive and machine learning processes, precision modulation ensures that the system focuses on what's relevant. In humans, this might involve attention being directed toward task-relevant sensory inputs, while in a generative model, it involves the output being more precisely aligned with the guidance prompt. 3. Bayesian inference in cognitive control and generative models in both the brain's cognitive control and the mechanism of classifier-free guidance. Bayesian inference plays a central role in determining how resources, attention or model weights, should be allocated to achieve desired outcomes. Cognitive control. The brain uses Bayesian inference to integrate prior knowledge, past experiences, with current task demands to adjust cognitive control settings, dynamically allocating effort based on the likelihood of success versus the cost of exertion. Generative models. Classifier-free guidance leverages implicit priors learned during model training to influence how outputs should be generated based on conditioning prompts. The generative process can be seen as a form of Bayesian sampling where the model balances between generating outputs based on the prior distribution, unconditional generation, and the guided distribution, conditional on the prompt. In both systems, Bayesian principles help balance competing objectives, effort versus performance in cognitive control, alignment with prompt versus general generative capability in classifier-free guidance. This balancing act ensures efficiency in cognitive tasks and effective generation in machine learning models. 4. Effort costs and control trade-offs. Both classifier-free guidance and cognitive control involve trade-offs that parallel the way effort costs constrain cognitive performance and control signals in the brain. Cognitive control. Effort costs act as a form of regularization in cognitive control, limiting how much effort can be expended on any given task to avoid unnecessary cognitive strain. The brain must balance the benefit of tighter control, e.g., higher accuracy, against the cost of increased effort. Classifier-free guidance. The guidance scale in diffusion models acts similarly by adjusting the trade-off between the strength of prompt adherence and the model's inherent creativity. A high guidance scale results in outputs that closely match the prompt but risks over-constraining the model, reducing diversity, while a low guidance scale allows for more diverse outputs but may stray from the prompt. Both systems are governed by the principle of optimization under constraint, where too much or too little control can lead to suboptimal outcomes. In cognitive control, this manifests as either excessive mental effort or insufficient control over behavior, while in classifier-free guidance, it manifests as either overly constrained or overly creative generations. 5. Task-relevant exploration. Finally, the connection between exploration and exploitation in both frameworks is significant. In the brain, cognitive control adjusts attention based on the task relevance of sensory inputs, focusing on information that is most likely to reduce uncertainty about the task at hand. This is akin to how classifier-free guidance focuses generative effort on the most relevant aspects of the prompt. Cognitive control and attention. The brain explores different strategies or sensory inputs and exploits the most relevant ones based on the task. This is facilitated by context-dependent exploration, where the brain gathers information that is most relevant to reducing uncertainty. Classifier-free guidance. In generative models, the guidance mechanism ensures that the output explores possible variations, but ultimately exploits the features that best match the user's prompt. The model searches through possible outputs and converges on those that align most closely with the intended generation. Both systems emphasize adaptive exploration based on the relevance of available information or outputs, ensuring that resources, cognitive or computational, are directed toward the most useful solutions. Conclusion. The mechanisms underlying cognitive control and selective attention in the brain, as described by Bayesian optimization and precision modulation, are highly analogous to classifier-free guidance in generative models. Both involve adaptive optimization processes where internal parameters, cognitive control signals or model guidance scales, are dynamically adjusted based on task demands or conditioning prompts. The brain's ability to balance effort, optimize control, and selectively focus on relevant information mirrors how generative models balance between diversity and alignment with prompts, using guidance to modulate outputs. This connection suggests that principles of Bayesian inference, precision modulation, and effort optimization are central to both cognitive and artificial generative systems. ChatGPT can